Hey, I'm Jesse. Let's have a devotion. We're going to continue through First Kings chapter 3. We just saw the cracks in Solomon's foundation, but God bless him nonetheless with riches beyond compare and with divine wisdom, as is evidenced by the book of Proverbs. And then I would argue later in life, as he maybe came back to the Lord, Ecclesiastes, which I insist should be required reading for every high school student in the world. More on that later. First, I want to give you some background. David was not all that attentive to his people. We saw in chapter 1 of First Kings that David was just chilling. This woman named Abishag had just found a job on Shlomo's list, and it was being a human-heated blanket. No, actually, she was probably kind of trafficked into that position, if we're honest. It's all just creepy and weird, especially when one of his wives. There you go. It's already weird. Bathsheba comes in to consult with him, and his caregiver is there with him. It's clear that he's not intimate with her. They're trying to, everything has this veneer on it as if it's totally appropriate and not weird at all, but it's just awkward. And David is just negligent. Now, his son Absalom capitalized on this, and it's how he won over the hearts of the people, while David was just kind of checked out. Absalom said to him, "Look, your claims are good and right, but the king does not have anyone to listen to you." He added, "If only someone would appoint me judge in the land, then anyone who had a grievance or dispute could come to me, and I would make sure he received justice." When a person approached to pay homage to him, Absalom reached out his hand, took hold of him, and kissed him. Absalom did this to all the Israelites who came to the king for a settlement. So Absalom stole the hearts of the men of Israel. So on the one hand, Absalom may have a point, but on the other, he's clearly trying to intercept people who would come to David for counsel anyway. Now, with that shortcoming of David's in mind, look at how attentive Solomon is. And recalling from, I think it's the first 9 verses, that Solomon had a dream. It was in a dream that he was invited by the Lord to ask for anything. And he asked for wisdom to govern God's people. So God gave him wisdom beyond measure and riches beyond measure as well, because he didn't ask for it. Precisely because he didn't ask for it, God gave it to him. Now, this is this is probably where this became a cinema trope. The, waking up from the dream to realize oh, it's real. It really happened. That really was an encounter with God. This dream was divine and was actual, and it wasn't just a dream. And it's borne out in the wisdom that Solomon displays in this text. Then 2 women who were prostitutes, that part's often left out of this. I don't know why. And 2 women who were prostitutes came to the king and stood before him. One woman said, "Please, my lord, this woman and I live in the same house, and I had a baby while she was in the house. On the 3rd day after I gave birth, she also had a baby, and we were alone. No one else was with us in the house, just the 2 of us were there. During the night, this woman's son died because she lay on him. She got up in the middle of the night and took my son from my side while your servant was asleep. She laid him in her arms. She put her dead son in my arms. When I got up in the morning to nurse my son, I discovered he was dead. That morning, when I looked closely at him, I realized that he was not the son I gave birth to." "No," the other woman said. "My son is the living one. Your son is the dead one." The first woman said, "No, your son is the dead one. My son is the living one." So they argued before the king. The king replied, "This woman says, 'This is my son who is alive, and your son is dead.' But that woman says, 'No, your son is dead, and my son is alive.'" The king continued, "Bring me a sword." So they brought the sword to the king. And the king said, "Cut the living boy in 2 and give half to one and half to the other." The woman whose son was alive spoke to the king because she felt great compassion for her son. "My lord, give her the living baby," she said, "but please don't have him killed." But the other one said, "He will not be mine or yours. Cut him in 2. The king responded, "Give the living baby to the first woman and don't kill him. She is his mother." All Israel heard about the judgment the king had given, and they stood in awe of the king because they saw that God's wisdom was in him to carry out justice. Now, atheistic critics would claim this were apocryphal and just made up. but I'm telling you, it's real because of the moxie that Solomon showed. I think right back here. Bring me the sword. Bring me a sword. Like, pause right there, because all he does in verse 23 is just recap back to them like a good counselor, reflect content, reflect emotion. But then his very next words are, bring me a sword. This is kind of, I think, where the wisdom is really being displayed, because it seems like a total non sequitur, but he knows exactly what he's doing. And he doesn't overtly state his intent. He implies it. And then everybody puts two and two together. He never explains the riddle either. So it would be possible, if the press were a thing in his day, that some member of the press corps could totally misinterpret this. Bring me a sword. He threatened the women with a sword. But his moxie, his boldness to speak that way and to say such a shocking thing. He's obviously being coy, and he doesn't actually intend to have the baby killed. He's using implication, and then people draw the right conclusion, and he elicits the truth, and this more wicked mother exposes herself in the trap that he sets. And the more loving mother reveals herself. So he's created this perfect circumstance for the truth to come out. And so I think that's very real. I think that's evidence of divine wisdom. That's some 3D chess intellectual stuff right there. And don't forget that it's marked with bold words and with moxie. That he's not governing through wisdom explicitly. He had no intentions of having this baby cut in half. That's another sort of obtuse take on the text. He had no intentions of having the baby cut in half. That's just real wisdom. And that, and if there were press agents there, he probably would have spoken with even a different form of moxie. But I just admire the wisdom. And I can see that the text came true. And here's our takeaway. You're going to love this. It comes from a book that we just studied. Solomon is, especially in 1 Kings chapter 3, kind of a mountaintop Solomon experience. You'll see, especially, I think it's the very first verse of chapter 11, might actually make you laugh out loud, because you're going to just see right away Solomon tanking. Right now it's just cracks in the foundation, but everything's about to give way as we move forward. But in chapter 3, Solomon would give a wholehearted amen if he were alive for the book of James to have been written in his lifetime. Now, if any of you lacks wisdom, he should ask God, who gives to all generously and ungrudgingly, and it will be given to him. What a precedent from the Old Testament to prove this New Testament teaching about God and his generosity and his mercy with wisdom. Right here, James chapter 1, verse 5. James 1:5 is true. Just ask Solomon.